Blood pooled under the exam table in Bay 4, spreading faster than anyone could mop it. The monitors screamed. 3 trauma cases arrived within minutes of each other, and the ER at Ridgeway Medical Center in Colton looked like it had been hit by a bomb. The senior attending was frozen, staring at the chaos like he'd forgotten where he was. Then a voice cut through the noise, calm, direct, ice cold. "You, bag him. You two, pressure on the femoral. Move." Nobody knew who she was, but they moved. 23 minutes later, all 3 patients were stable. The ER went quiet. Then someone whispered, "Who the hell is she?" Nobody had an answer. Not yet. If you want to see how far this story goes, if you want to watch the mask come off and the truth hit like a freight train, stay with me until the very end. Drop a like, leave a comment with the city you're watching from, and let me know how far this story travels. Because what happens next? Nobody sees it coming. Her name was Maren Cole, and she didn't look like much. Mid-30s, average height, dark hair pulled back in a bun that had seen better days. Scrubs that didn't quite fit right. She walked into Ridgeway Medical Center on a Tuesday morning with a worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a paper coffee cup in her other hand. The lobby smelled like disinfectant and burnt toast. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She didn't say much at check-in, just handed over her paperwork, nodded at the right moments, and followed the HR coordinator down a hallway lined with motivational posters nobody read. "You'll be working nights to start," the coordinator said, barely looking at her. "Probationary period is 90 days. Don't be late. Don't call out unless you're dying. And don't touch anything in the supply room without logging it." Maren nodded. "Got it." "Good." The coordinator handed her a badge with her name misspelled. Maren Cole. Close enough. "Locker rooms downstairs. Orientation starts at 3. Any questions?" "No." "Great. Welcome to Ridgeway." The coordinator walked away before Maren could respond. She clipped the badge to her scrubs and headed for the locker room. Nobody looked at her twice. She was just another body filling a gap in the schedule. Another name on a roster that would probably be gone in 6 months. That was fine. She preferred it that way. Ridgeway Medical Center sat on the edge of Colton, a mid-sized city that had seen better decades. The hospital wasn't prestigious. It wasn't cutting edge. It was functional. Overworked staff, outdated equipment, a rotating door of temporary nurses who couldn't handle the pace. The ER was the worst of it. Too many patients, not enough beds, and a culture that rewarded speed over everything else. Mistakes happened. People looked the other way. It was just how things were. Maren's first shift started at 11 that night. She showed up 15 minutes early, clocked in, and stood at the nurse's station waiting for someone to tell her what to do. The charge nurse, a woman named Brenna with tired eyes and a voice like gravel, glanced at her, then back at her clipboard. "You the new one?" "Yeah." "Ever work in ER before?" "Yeah." Brenna didn't look impressed. "Where?" "Different places." "Uh-huh." Brenna scribbled something on her clipboard. "You'll shadow Kay tonight. Don't get in her way. Don't touch anything unless she tells you to. And if you don't know something, ask. We don't have time to fix your mistakes." "Understood." "Good." Brenna pointed down the hall. "Bay 6. Go." Maren went. Kay was younger, maybe late 20s, with a ponytail that swung when she walked and a habit of chewing gum loudly. She didn't smile when Maren introduced herself, just gave her a once-over and handed her a stack of blankets. "Restock the bays. Then come find me." Maren took the blankets and got to work. She moved quietly, efficiently, without drawing attention. She refilled supplies, organized trays, checked IV lines, and logged vitals. She didn't ask unnecessary questions. She didn't complain. She just did the work. Kay noticed but didn't say anything. Neither did anyone else. The first few hours were routine. Minor injuries. A kid with a sprained ankle. An older man with chest pain that turned out to be indigestion. A woman who'd taken too many pills and needed monitoring. Maren handled the basics, vitals, charting, prepping rooms. She kept her head down, stayed out of the way. Nobody paid much attention to her, and that was exactly what she wanted. Then Dr. Victor Lindquist showed up. He was the kind of doctor who walked into a room like he owned it. Tall, sharp-featured, with graying hair, and a voice that carried. He'd been at Ridgeway for 12 years and ran the ER like it was his personal kingdom. The nurses didn't like him, but they didn't challenge him either. He had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and completely intolerant of anything that slowed him down. If you made a mistake around Lindquist, you heard about it, loudly, in front of everyone. Maren was in Bay 3, checking a patient's blood pressure, when he walked past. He glanced at her, then stopped. "Who are you?" She looked up. "Maren Cole, I started today." "Great. Another temp." He didn't try to hide the disdain in his voice. "You know how to do a proper IV stick, or are you one of those nurses who needs 3 tries?" "I can do it." "Good. Bay 8. Patient needs fluids. Don't screw it up." He walked off before she could respond. Kay, who'd been standing nearby, gave Maren a look that said, "Welcome to hell." "Don't take it personally," Kay muttered. "He's like that with everyone." "Yeah." Maren grabbed the IV kit and headed for Bay 8. I noticed. The patient was a middle-aged woman with severe dehydration. Maren introduced herself, found a vein on the first try, and had the line running in under 2 minutes. The woman thanked her. Maren nodded and moved on. She didn't need praise. She just needed to do the job. But Lindquist was watching. Over the next few shifts, it became clear that he'd decided Maren was a problem. Not because she made mistakes, she didn't, but because she was new, and new meant unproven, and unproven meant she didn't belong in his ER. He questioned her every move, checked her charting, hovered when she worked, and every time she did something right, he acted like it was a fluke. "Vitals are stable," Maren said one night, updating him on a trauma case. "Did you double check?" "Yes." "Check again." She did. They were the same. Lindquist grunted and walked away without a word. Kay pulled her aside later. "You okay?" "Fine. He's testing you, seeing if you'll crack." "I won't." "Yeah, well," Kay shrugged. "Most people don't last a month with him breathing down their neck." Maren didn't respond. She just went back to work. The truth was, she dealt with worse, much worse. Lindquist's condescension was nothing compared to what she'd survived. But she couldn't say that. She couldn't explain why his attitude rolled off her like water. She couldn't tell anyone that she'd spent years in places where hesitation meant death, where every decision carried weight that people like Lindquist would never understand. So she stayed quiet, kept her head down. Let them think she was just another nurse trying to survive the shift. But cracks were starting to show. One night, a patient came in with a stab wound to the abdomen. Young guy, maybe 22, bleeding fast. Lindquist was in another bay, so the attending on call, Dr. Reese, a newer doctor who was still figuring things out, took the lead. Maren assisted. Reese was good, but he was slow. He second-guessed himself, asked too many questions. The patient's pressure was dropping. "We need to move," Maren said quietly. Reese nodded, but he didn't speed up. He was still checking imaging, still debating the next step. Maren glanced at the monitors. The numbers weren't good. "Dr. Reese, I know. He sounded flustered. "Just give me a second." Maren didn't have a second. She grabbed a pressure dressing and applied it directly to the wound. The bleeding slowed. Reese looked up, startled. "Did I tell you to do that?" "No, but he was losing too much blood." "I'm the doctor here." "I know." Maren's voice stayed calm. "And I'm trying to keep him alive long enough for you to make the call." Reese stared at her. For a moment, it looked like he might argue. Then he exhaled, nodded, and refocused on the patient. The guy stabilized. He made it to surgery. He survived. Lindquist heard about it. He cornered Maren at the nurses' station the next night. "You overstepped." "I saved his life." "You acted without orders." Reese was stuck. "The patient was crashing. I made a call." "That's not your job." Lindquist's voice was cold. "You're a nurse. You follow protocol. You don't make decisions above your pay grade." Maren met his eyes. "Protocol doesn't mean much when someone's bleeding out on the table." "Stay in your lane, Cole, or you won't be here long." He walked away. Maren stood there, jaw tight, hands steady. Kay came over a few minutes later. "You really pissed him off." "Yeah." "You don't seem too worried." Maren shrugged. "I've been fired before." "Maybe. But this is different. Lindquist doesn't forget." "Neither do I." Kay didn't know what to make of that. Nobody did. Because Maren Cole didn't talk about her past. She didn't mention where she'd worked before, or why she'd left, or what she'd done before nursing. She just showed up, did the work, and disappeared at the end of her shift. People speculated. Some thought she'd burned out at a bigger hospital. Others figured she'd had a malpractice issue. A few wondered if she was running from something. They were all wrong. 2 weeks later, the hospital announced budget cuts. Ridgeway was hemorrhaging money, and administration decided the ER was the place to trim. 3 nurses were let go. Maren wasn't one of them, but the message was clear. Keep your head down, don't make waves, and do exactly what you're told. Lindquist used the cuts as leverage. He tightened his grip on the department, enforced stricter protocols, and made it clear that anyone who stepped out of line would be gone. Maren kept working. She didn't argue, didn't push back. She just did her job. But people were starting to notice things, small things. The way she moved during a code, smooth, deliberate, like she'd done it 1,000 times. The way she assessed trauma patients, fast, methodical, almost clinical. The way she stayed calm when everyone else was losing it. One night, a cardiac arrest came in. An older man, unresponsive, no pulse. Lindquist was off-site. Reese was leading the code. The team worked fast, but the rhythm wasn't coming back. 2 rounds of epi. Nothing. Reese looked panicked. Should we call it? Maren was at the head of the bed, bagging the patient. Not yet. He's been down for 12 minutes. I know. 1 more round. Reese hesitated. Maren didn't. She adjusted the compression angle, checked the airway, and nodded at the tech running the defibrillator. Charge to 200. I didn't order. Ooh. Charge it. The tech looked at Reese. Reese looked at Maren. Then he nodded. Do it. They shocked. The monitor beeped. Sinus rhythm. The man's chest rose. Maren stepped back. Reese stared at the screen, then at her. How did you know? Experience. That's not an answer. Maren didn't give him one. She just stripped off her gloves and walked out of the bay. The man survived. The staff talked about it for days. Lindquist heard the story and didn't say a word, but his eyes followed Maren whenever she was in the ER. He was watching, waiting for her to slip. She didn't. And then, on a Friday night, 3 weeks into her probation, everything changed. It started with a call from dispatch. Mass casualty event. Chemical explosion at an industrial site on the edge of Colton. Multiple victims. Burns, respiratory distress, crush injuries. ETA, 8 minutes. The ER went into overdrive. Brenna started barking orders. Bays were cleared. Supplies were prepped. Lindquist arrived within minutes, already in command mode. All hands on deck, he said. No one leaves until this is handled. Maren tied her hair back and grabbed a trauma cart. She'd done this before. Just not here. And not in a long time. The first ambulance arrived, then the second, then the third. The ER flooded with patients, screaming, bleeding, gasping for air. The smell hit immediately. Chemicals, burnt flesh, smoke. Maren's stomach turned, but she didn't flinch. She moved to the first gurney. A man in his 40s, face covered in soot, breathing shallow. Get him on oxygen, she said to a tech. High-flow mask, now. The tech hesitated. Dr. Lindquist didn't do it. The tech did. Maren moved to the next patient, a woman with second-degree burns across her arms. Maren started an IV, pushed fluids, and wrapped the burns with precision. She didn't wait for orders. She didn't ask permission. She just moved. Lindquist noticed. Cole, his voice cut across the chaos. What do you think you're doing? Triage. I didn't tell you to lead triage. You didn't tell anyone to. Maren didn't stop working. So I started. Lindquist's face went red. You don't have the authority? Then give it to someone who does, or we're going to lose people. For a moment, the ER went quiet. Everyone was watching. Lindquist stared at her, jaw clenched. Then another ambulance pulled up. More patients, more chaos. He turned away. Fine, do it. But if anyone dies because you screwed up, it's on you. Maren didn't respond. She just kept moving. And that's when people realized she wasn't guessing. She knew exactly what she was doing. She moved through the ER like she'd mapped it in her head, tagged patients by severity, red for critical, yellow for urgent, green for stable, black for unsalvageable. She didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. She looked at a patient for 3 seconds and knew where they belonged. The nurses started following her lead. Even Brenna, who'd been doing this for 20 years, deferred to her. Bay 2, Maren said, pointing. Intubate, now. Got it. Bay 5, IV fluids, 2 liters wide open, monitor for shock. On it. Bay 9, that patient's stable. Move him to observation. We need the space. The tech nodded and wheeled the gurney out. Maren moved to the next case, a teenager with a crushed leg. Bone fragments visible through torn skin. He was screaming. Maren knelt beside him, her voice calm. Hey, look at me. The kid's eyes locked on hers, wild, terrified. You're going to be okay, she said. But I need you to breathe. Can you do that? He nodded, gasping. Good. Keep breathing. We've got you. She signaled to a nurse. Morphine, 5 milligrams, then get him to imaging. Right away. The kid's screaming stopped. Maren moved on. Another patient, another call, another life hanging in the balance. She didn't think. She just acted. Every movement was automatic. Every decision was instant. And every time she touched a patient, they stabilized. Lindquist watched from across the room. He'd never seen anything like it. She wasn't just good. She was surgical, precise, like she'd done this in conditions far worse than a hospital ER. He didn't know whether to be impressed or suspicious, probably both. An hour in, the volume started to ease. The critical cases were handled. The minor injuries were being processed. The ER was still packed, but it wasn't chaos anymore. It was controlled, organized, functional. Maren stood at the nurse's station, updating charts. Her scrubs were stained with blood. Her hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline wearing off. But her face was calm. Brenna walked over. Where the hell did you learn to do that? Maren didn't look up. Different places. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Brenna studied her for a moment. Then she nodded. Well, whatever those places were, they trained you right. Maren didn't respond. She just kept writing. Across the room, Kay leaned against the wall, exhausted. A tech named Simon stood next to her, watching Maren. She's weird, right? Simon said. Yeah. But she's good. Yeah. Think Lindquist will admit it? Kay snorted. Not a chance. She was right. Lindquist didn't say a word. Not to Maren. Not to anyone. He just watched her finish her charting, then disappear into the break room. He stood there for a long moment, jaw tight, thinking. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. It's Lindquist, he said when someone answered. I need you to run a background check on one of my nurses. Name's Maren Cole. Yeah, I want everything. Employment history, certifications, prior incidents, everything. He hung up, walked back to his office, and started making notes. Meanwhile, Maren sat in the break room with a cup of cold coffee, staring at the wall. Her hands had stopped shaking, her breathing was steady, but her mind was somewhere else, somewhere darker. She closed her eyes and let herself remember. The heat, the dust, the sound of rotors overhead, the screams, the blood. The moment she'd realized they weren't getting out. The moment she'd made the call that saved 6 lives and cost her everything. She opened her eyes, took a sip of coffee, pushed the memories back down. That was over. She'd left that life behind. She was just a nurse now, just Maren Cole. Nobody important, nobody dangerous. She almost believed it. The rest of the shift passed without incident. Patients were discharged, rooms were cleaned, the ER returned to its usual low hum of activity. Maren clocked out at 7 in the morning, grabbed her bag, and headed for the exit. She was halfway to the parking lot when she heard footsteps behind her. Cole? She turned. Lindquist. Yeah? You did good work tonight. She blinked. That was the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever heard from him. Thanks. Don't let it go to your head. His voice hardened. You still overstepped. You still acted without authorization. And if I find out you've been lying about your credentials, you're done. Maren's expression didn't change. I haven't lied about anything. We'll see. He walked past her, got into his car, and drove off. Maren stood there for a moment, watching him go. Then she got into her own car, a beat-up sedan that had seen better years, and sat in the driver's seat staring at the steering wheel. He was digging. That was a problem. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through her contacts, Found a name she hadn't called in 2 years. Hesitated. Then put the phone down. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She'd handled worse situations than a suspicious ER doctor. She just had to keep her head down, keep doing the work, stay invisible. She started the car and drove home. Her apartment was small. 1 bedroom, barely furnished, a mattress on the floor, a table with 1 chair, a lamp. She didn't own much, didn't need much. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto the bed without changing. Sleep didn't come easy. It never did. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night in her head. The patience. The chaos. The way her body had moved without thinking. The way it had felt like slipping back into an old uniform. She hated how natural it felt. Eventually, she drifted off. But the dreams came. They always did. Fire, dust, blood, faces she couldn't save. A voice on the radio telling her to pull back. Her own voice, refusing. The explosion. The silence after. She woke up at 2 in the afternoon, drenched in sweat. Sat up, breathed, reminded herself where she was. Colton. Ridgeway Medical Center. Maren Cole. Nurse. Civilian. Not a soldier. Not anymore. She got up, showered, made instant coffee, and stared out the window. The city stretched out below her. Gray. Industrial. Forgettable. Perfect. She had 4 days off. She spent them the same way she always did. Quiet. Alone. She went to the grocery store, bought the same things she always bought, walked the same route through the same park, avoided eye contact, avoided conversation. On the 4th day, she got a text from Brenna. Need you to come in tonight. Short-staffed. Overtime pay. Maren replied, okay. She showed up at 10. The ER was already busy. Not mass casualty busy, but steady. Brenna looked relieved when she saw her. Thank God. We're drowning. Where do you need me? Everywhere. Maren got to work. The night passed in a blur. Chest pain, broken bones, an overdose, a kid with croup, a drunk driver who'd wrapped his car around a pole. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that required her to step out of line. Until the door opened and a man walked in. He wasn't a patient. He was wearing a suit, dark, expensive, and he had a badge clipped to his belt. Federal. Maren saw him from across the room and felt her stomach drop. He walked straight to the nurse's station. Spoke to Brenna. Brenna pointed. Directly at Maren. The man walked over. Stopped in front of her. Extended a hand. Maren Cole? She didn't take the hand. Who's asking? Agent Garrett, FBI. He showed her his badge. I need a few minutes of your time. Maren's expression didn't change, but her pulse spiked. I'm working. It's important. So is this. She gestured to the ER. Garrett didn't move. It's about Lindquist's background check request and what we found when we ran your name through the system. Maren went still. Garrett's voice dropped. We need to talk, somewhere private. She glanced around. The ER was watching. Lindquist was in his office, but his door was open. He was looking right at her. She turned back to Garrett. 5 minutes, break room. That'll do? They walked. Maren felt every eye in the ER follow her. She led Garrett into the break room, closed the door, and crossed her arms. What do you want? Garrett pulled out a folder, opened it. Inside was a photo. Military, desert fatigues. A younger version of Maren standing with a unit. Her face was harder. Her eyes were colder. Sergeant Maren Cole, Garrett said. Discharged 4 years ago, decorated, honorably separated, except that's not the whole story, is it? Maren didn't respond. You were part of a classified medical unit. Operation designation, Vanguard. You were embedded with special operations teams in hostile territory, trauma care under fire, high-risk extractions, the kind of work that doesn't make it into official records. I'm not talking about this. You don't have to. I already know. Garrett closed the folder. What I don't know is why you're here. Working nights at a second-rate hospital in Colton, using your real name. Not hiding, but not exactly advertising either. I left that life. People like you don't just leave. I did. Garrett studied her. Lindquist thinks you're hiding something. He's right, but not in the way he thinks. Why are you here? Because 2 days ago, we intercepted chatter about a potential domestic terror threat. Target, Colton. Specifically, this hospital. Maren's blood went cold. We don't have details, Garrett continued, but we have reason to believe someone's planning an attack. Could be a disgruntled employee, could be external, we don't know. But your name came up in our sweep, and now I'm wondering if it's a coincidence. It is. Is it? Maren didn't answer. Garrett leaned forward. If something's coming and you know about it, you need to tell me. Now. I don't know anything, but you'd recognize the signs if you saw them. Maren's jaw tightened. Maybe. Then keep your eyes open, and if you see something, you call me. He handed her a card. Day or night. Understood? She took the card. Didn't look at it, just shoved it in her pocket. Garrett stood. One more thing. Lindquist doesn't know what I just told you, and he's not going to. As far as he's concerned, you checked out clean. Former military. Honorable discharge. End of story. Why? Because if there's a threat, the last thing we need is panic. And because I think you're exactly the kind of person we need in that ER if things go sideways. He walked to the door. Stopped. Looked back. You saved lives in places most people can't even imagine. Don't waste that here. He left. Maren stood in the break room, alone, staring at the wall. Her hands were shaking again, not from adrenaline this time, from fear. Because Garrett was right. She would recognize the signs. And the thing about threats like this, once you started looking, you couldn't stop. Every patient became a suspect. Every bag became a bomb. Every second became a countdown. She took a breath, steadied herself. Then she walked back into the ER. Lindquist was waiting. What did he want? Background check came back clean. That's it? That's it. Lindquist didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. He just nodded and walked away. Maren went back to work, but her eyes kept scanning. The entrance, the waiting room, the people coming and going. She told herself it was nothing, just routine, just paranoia. But deep down, she knew better. Something was coming, and when it hit, she'd be the only one ready. The next 3 days crawled by like something was waiting just out of sight. Maren worked her shifts, checked vitals, started IVs, charted medications. But the whole time her eyes tracked movement. The kid in the hoodie who sat too long in the waiting room before leaving without being seen. The delivery guy who asked too many questions about where the loading dock was. The woman with the oversized purse who kept glancing at the exits. None of it meant anything. Probably. But she couldn't turn it off. The scanning, the threat assessment, the muscle memory that divided every room into angles and choke points. It had been 4 years since she'd left the service, and her brain still operated like she was in a combat zone. Kay noticed. You okay? Maren was restocking a crash cart. Yeah, why? You've been jumpy. I'm fine. Kay didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. She just grabbed a box of gloves and walked away. Maren finished the cart and moved to the next task. Keep moving. Stay busy. Don't think too hard. Lindquist was in his office more than usual. Every time Maren passed, he was on the phone or buried in paperwork. He didn't look at her much anymore, didn't question her, didn't hover, but she could feel the weight of his attention, even when he wasn't in the room. He knew something was off. He just couldn't figure out what. That made 2 of them. On the 4th night after Garrett's visit, the ER was slammed. Not mass casualty, just the usual grind. Car accidents, heart attacks, a construction worker with a nail through his hand, a diabetic and ketoacidosis. Maren moved from bay to bay, her hands working automatically while her mind stayed half a step ahead, always watching. Around 2 in the morning, a man walked in. He was in his mid-40s, average build, jeans, work boots, a jacket zipped up despite the fact that it was 70 degrees outside. He didn't look injured, didn't look sick. He walked straight to the triage desk and stood there, hands in his pockets, scanning the room. Maren was 20 feet away, updating a chart. She watched him out of the corner of her eye. The triage nurse, a guy named Phil, looked up. Can I help you? The man didn't answer right away, just kept looking around. Then he said, I need to see a doctor. What's the problem? Chest pain. Phil grabbed a clipboard. How long have you been experiencing symptoms? Couple hours. Any shortness of breath? Nausea? Radiating pain. Yeah, all of it. Phil's expression shifted. Chest pain was high priority. He stood. Okay, I'm going to get you back right away. Follow me. The man followed. Phil led him to Bay 7. Maren watched them disappear behind the curtain. Something about the guy didn't sit right. The way he'd paused before answering. The way his eyes had tracked every person in the room. The jacket. She walked over to Brenna. The chest pain in Bay 7, you get a good look at him? Brenna glanced up. Not really. Why? Just asking. You think he's faking? I don't know. Brenna frowned. You want me to flag it? No, I'll keep an eye on it. Suit yourself. Maren moved to Bay 6, adjacent to Bay 7. She worked on a patient there, a woman with a sprained wrist, but kept her ears open. She could hear Phil talking to the man, taking vitals, asking questions. The man's answers were short, clipped, like he was reading from a script. Then she heard Phil say, I'm going to run an EKG. Just sit tight. Footsteps. Phil left the bay. Maren finished wrapping the wrist, told the patient a doctor would be in soon, and stepped into the hallway. Phil was at the nurse's station, setting up the EKG machine. How's he look? Maren asked. Phil shrugged. Vitals are borderline. Pulse is elevated. Blood pressure's high. Could be anxiety, could be cardiac. We'll know more after the EKG. He seemed nervous to you? Everyone's nervous in an ER. Yeah. Maren glanced toward Bay 7. Mind if I take a look? Phil raised an eyebrow. You don't trust my assessment? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Maren met his eyes. I'm saying I want to take a look. Phil stared at her for a moment. Then he handed her the EKG leads. Fine, knock yourself out. Maren took them and walked to Bay 7. She pushed the curtain aside. The man was sitting on the bed, still wearing the jacket. His hands were folded in his lap. He looked up when she entered. Hi, Maren said, keeping her voice even. I'm going to run an EKG. Can you take off your jacket for me? The man hesitated, just for a second, but Maren caught it. It's hot in here, he said. I'm fine. The leads need to go on your chest. The jacket's in the way. Another pause. Then he slowly unzipped it. Underneath, he was wearing a long-sleeve shirt. Maren watched his hands, steady, controlled, not the hands of someone in pain. Shirt too, she said. He pulled it off. No visible weapons, no scars, no signs of distress. Maren attached the leads, her movements deliberate, her eyes scanning. The jacket was on the chair beside the bed, bulky, heavier than it should be. You work construction? She asked. Yeah. What kind? Demolition. Her pulse kicked up. That's hard work. It is. Ever get hurt on the job? Sometimes. Like today? He looked at her. No, just the chest pain. Right. Maren finished attaching the leads and stepped back. I'll run this and get the results to the doctor. Sit tight. She left the bay. Walked straight to Brenna. We need security in Bay 7. Brenna looked up. Why? Just get them. Now. Maren? Brenna, do it! Something in Maren's voice made Brenna stop arguing. She picked up the phone and called. 2 minutes later, a security guard named Marcus walked over. What's going on? Maren kept her voice low. There's a patient in Bay 7, came in for chest pain. He's wearing a jacket that's too heavy. He's lying about his symptoms. And he told me he works demolition. Marcus frowned. So? So I think he's carrying something. You mean like a weapon? Maybe. Or worse. Marcus's expression darkened. You sure? No, but I'm not wrong. Marcus looked at Brenna. Brenna nodded. Marcus exhaled. Okay, I'll check it out. Stay here. He walked toward Bay 7. Maren watched him go. Her hands were shaking again. She clenched them into fists. Brenna leaned closer. What the hell is going on? I don't know yet. Is this about the Fed who came by? Maren didn't answer. Marcus reached Bay 7, pushed the curtain aside. Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside for a moment. The man didn't move. Why? Just routine. Won't take long. The man stood, slowly, his eyes flicked to the jacket on the chair, then back to Marcus. I'd like to leave. You can, after we finish the exam. I'm leaving now. He started toward the curtain. Marcus stepped in front of him. Sir, I need you to stay calm, and the man shoved him. Hard. Marcus stumbled back, hit the wall. The man bolted. Maren was already moving. She cut him off at the hallway. He tried to push past her. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. He swung with his free hand. She ducked, drove her shoulder into his ribs, and took him to the ground. The impact knocked the air out of him. She pinned his arm behind his back and held him there. Don't move. He struggled. Maren applied pressure. He stopped. Marcus scrambled to his feet, radio already out. Code Gray, Bay 7. We need backup. More security arrived. They pulled the man up, cuffed him, and dragged him out of the ER. Maren stood, breathing hard, adrenaline spiking. The entire ER had gone silent. Everyone was staring. Lindquist appeared out of nowhere. What the hell just happened? Patient tried to run, Maren said. Marcus stopped him. Marcus shot her a look but didn't correct her. Lindquist's eyes narrowed. And you just happened to be there? Yeah. Convenient. Maren didn't respond. She walked back to Bay 7, grabbed the jacket off the chair, and handed it to Marcus. Check this. He did. Reached into the pocket, pulled out a small rectangular device, black, wired, a digital timer on the front. The ER went dead quiet. Get everyone out, Maren said. Now. Marcus didn't hesitate. He hit the fire alarm. The ER erupted. Patients scrambled. Nurses grabbed equipment. Doctors shouted instructions. Within 2 minutes, the entire department was evacuated. Maren stood at the entrance, watching the street fill with people. Emergency vehicles arrived. Police, bomb squad, federal agents. Garrett was one of them. He walked straight to Maren. You called it. I got lucky. Luck doesn't look like that. He glanced at the jacket in Marcus's hands. Bomb squad's going to clear it. But I need you to tell me everything you saw. Maren did. The jacket, the hesitation, the demolition comment, the way he'd scanned the room. Garrett listened, his expression unreadable. You should have called me the second you got suspicious. I wasn't sure. You were sure enough to take him down. Maren didn't respond. Garrett exhaled. The device is live. Small yield, but enough to do serious damage. He was planning to detonate it in the ER. Why? We don't know yet, but we will. He looked at her. You saved a lot of lives tonight. Just doing my job. No, you did a hell of a lot more than that. He walked away. Maren stood there, watching the bomb squad work. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her breathing was steady, but her mind was racing because Garrett was wrong. She hadn't called it. She'd felt it, the same way she'd felt threats in the field. The same instinct that had kept her alive when everything around her was falling apart. She hated that it was still there. Hated that she was good at it. But she couldn't deny it anymore. Lindquist found her an hour later. The ER had been cleared. The device had been disarmed. The man was in federal custody. The hospital was locked down until further notice. We need to talk, Lindquist said. About what? About the fact that you just stopped a bombing. Security stopped it. Don't do that. His voice was sharp. Don't downplay this. You knew something was wrong. You acted on it. And now I want to know why. Maren met his eyes. Instinct. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Lindquist stepped closer. I ran your background, Cole. I know you were military. I know you were discharged. But what I don't know is what you did over there, or why someone with your skills is working night shifts in Colton. Maybe I just wanted a quiet life. Then you picked the wrong hospital. Maren almost smiled. Almost. Lindquist's expression softened, barely. Look, I don't care what you did before. I care about what you do here. And tonight, you saved this ER. So whatever baggage you're carrying, whatever reason you're hiding, keep it. Just don't let it get people killed. He walked away before she could respond. Maren stood there, alone in the empty hallway, staring at the spot where Bay 7 used to be. The curtain was gone. The bed was gone. The room had been stripped and sealed off. But she could still see the man sitting there, still see the jacket, still feel the weight of what could have happened. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to Garrett's number, hesitated, then put it away. Not yet, but soon. Because if there was one bomb, there could be another. And if Garrett was right, if this was part of something bigger, then the quiet life she'd been chasing was already over. She just didn't know how bad it was going to get. 2 days later, the hospital reopened. Ridgeway Medical Center released a statement calling the incident an isolated threat and thanking staff for their quick response. Maren's name wasn't mentioned. She preferred it that way. But the staff knew. Word had spread. The nurses whispered when she walked by. The techs gave her respectful nods. Even the doctors, ones who'd ignored her before, acknowledged her presence. She hated it, the attention, the recognition, the way people looked at her like she was something other than what she'd claimed to be. Kay cornered her in the break room. "You're a badass." "I'm not." "You tackled a guy with a bomb." "I didn't know it was a bomb." "Bullshit." Kay leaned against the counter. "You knew. You always know. That's what freaks people out." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." Kay grabbed a coffee. "Just do me a favor. Next time you get a bad feeling, tell someone before you go all action hero." Maren didn't respond. She just drank her coffee and stared at the wall. The shifts returned to normal, or as normal as they could be. Patients came in. Patients left. The ER hummed with its usual chaos. But there was an edge now, a tension that hadn't been there before. Security was tighter, bags were checked, visitors were screened, and Maren's eyes never stopped scanning. On the 5th night after the incident, Garrett called. "We identified the bomber," he said. "Name's Leo Driscoll, ex-military. Dishonorably discharged 3 years ago. History of radicalization. He's not talking, but we found communications linking him to a larger network." "What kind of network?" "The kind that thinks hospitals are valid targets." Maren's stomach dropped. "You think there are more?" "We're working on it, but I need you to stay alert. If you see anything at all, you call me. Understood?" "Yeah." "Good. And Cole?" "What?" "You did the right thing. Don't second guess it." He hung up. Maren sat there, phone in hand, staring at the screen. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe she'd done the right thing. But all she could think about was the last time she'd made a call like that. The last time she'd trusted her instinct. The last time people had died because she hadn't been fast enough. She shoved the phone in her pocket and went back to work. The next patient was a kid, maybe 16. Came in with his mom. Said he'd been feeling dizzy. Maren took his vitals. Normal. She asked about drugs. He said no. She didn't believe him, but she didn't push. She just charted it and moved on. 2 hours later, the kid coded. Cardiac arrest. Probable overdose. The team worked him for 20 minutes. He didn't make it. His mom screamed, loud, raw, the kind of sound that cut through everything. Maren stood at the edge of the room, hands at her sides, watching the doctors call it, watching the mom collapse, watching the nurses try to console her. She didn't feel anything, just a hollow ache where the grief should have been. Kay found her later. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You don't look okay." "I'm fine." Kay didn't believe her, but she didn't argue. She just put a hand on Maren's shoulder and walked away. Maren finished her shift, clocked out. Walked to her car, sat in the driver's seat, and didn't move for 10 minutes. Then she started the engine and drove home. She didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the kid, thinking about Driscoll, thinking about all the calls she'd made and all the people she hadn't saved. By the time the sun came up, she'd made a decision. She wasn't running anymore. The next shift, she walked into the ER with a different look in her eyes. Sharper, harder, like a door had closed and a different one had opened. Brenna noticed immediately. "You good?" "Yeah." "You sure?" "Yeah." Brenna didn't push. She just handed Maren her assignments and let her work. And Maren did. Fast, efficient, relentless. She didn't take breaks, didn't slow down, just moved from patient to patient like she was on a mission. Lindquist watched from his office. He didn't say anything, but his expression said enough. Around midnight, the doors opened and a woman walked in. Mid-30s, well-dressed, calm. She walked straight to the triage desk and said, "I need to speak with Maren Cole." Phil looked confused. "Are you a patient?" "No, I'm here on official business." "What kind of business?" The woman pulled out a badge. Department of Defense. Phil's eyes widened. I'll get her. He found Maren in Bay 4. Someone's here for you. Who? Government, DOD. Maren's pulse spiked. She walked to the waiting room. The woman was standing by the door, hands folded, expression neutral. Sergeant Cole, the woman said. Maren's jaw tightened. I'm not a sergeant anymore. No, but you were, and we need your help. With what? The woman glanced around. Not here. Can we talk outside? Maren followed her into the parking lot. The woman stopped by a black SUV, turned, and looked at Maren with cold precision. My name is Director Hale. I oversee domestic threat response for the DOD. The bomber you stopped last week, he's part of a coordinated effort. We've identified 3 more targets, all hospitals, all within the next 72 hours. Maren's blood ran cold. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only person who successfully identified and stopped one of these attacks. And because we need someone on the inside, someone who knows what to look for. You want me to be bait. I want you to do what you do best. Assess. Act. Save lives. Maren stared at her. I'm a nurse. You're a combat medic with a record that speaks for itself. You've operated in hostile environments under fire. You've made split-second decisions that save dozens of lives. And you're exactly the kind of person we need right now. I left that behind. Did you? Hale's voice was calm, relentless. Because from where I'm standing, you're still doing it. You're just doing it in scrubs instead of fatigues. Maren didn't respond. Hale handed her a phone. This is a direct line. If you see anything at all, you use it. We'll have a team standing by. But Cole, if you don't help us, people are going to die. A lot of people. She walked back to the SUV, got in, and drove away. Maren stood there, phone in hand, staring at the empty parking lot. Then she turned and walked back into the ER. Because Hale was right. She'd never really left. The phone felt like a lead weight in her pocket. Maren walked back through the automatic doors, past the security checkpoint that had been installed 3 days ago, past the metal detectors that slowed everything down but made people feel safer. The ER was packed again. A woman with a broken arm. A guy vomiting into a basin. A kid with a fever. Normal chaos. Normal suffering. Nothing that screamed bomb threat. But Driscoll had looked normal too. She went straight to the nurse's station. Brenna was on the phone arguing with radiology about a delayed scan. Kay was charting. A new tech, someone Maren didn't recognize, was restocking gloves. Maren's eyes stopped on him. Mid-20s, clean cut, moved efficiently, too efficiently. Who's that? She asked Kay. Kay glanced up. Tyler, started 2 days ago, temp hire. Where'd he come from? No idea. HR sent him over. Why? Just asking. Kay gave her a look. You're doing it again. Doing what? That thing where you look at people like they're threats. I'm not. You are. Kay leaned closer. Look, I get it. After what happened with Driscoll, everyone's on edge. But you can't go around suspecting every new face. You'll burn out. Maren didn't respond. She just watched Tyler finish restocking and move to the supply room. He didn't look back. Didn't make eye contact. Just did his job and disappeared. Maybe Kay was right. Maybe she was seeing threats that weren't there. Or maybe that's exactly what they wanted her to think. She pulled out the phone Hale had given her. No contacts, no apps, just a single speed dial button. She stared at it for a long moment, then shoved it back in her pocket and got to work. The shift dragged. Nothing unusual happened. No suspicious patients, no abandoned bags, no one acting off. By 3 a.m, Maren was starting to wonder if Hale had been wrong, or if the threat had moved to a different hospital. She was in Bay 9, suturing a laceration on a guy who'd punched a wall when Lindquist appeared. Cole, my office. Now. She tied off the stitch, applied a dressing, and gave the patient discharge instructions. Then she followed Lindquist down the hall. His office was small, cluttered, papers everywhere. He closed the door behind her. Sit. She sat. Lindquist leaned against his desk, arms crossed. I got a call from administration. They want to know why the Department of Defense is asking questions about one of my nurses. Maren kept her face neutral. What kind of questions? The kind that make me think you're involved in something I don't know about. I'm not involved in anything. Then why did a DOD director show up in my parking lot? You saw that? Security footage. I see everything. He studied her. So I'm going to ask you one more time. What's going on? Maren met his eyes. They think there might be another threat. They asked me to keep an eye out. Why you? Because I stopped the first one. Lindquist exhaled. And you didn't think to mention this. I'm mentioning it now. That's not good enough. His voice hardened. If there's a credible threat to this hospital, I need to know, not after the fact, not when it's convenient, now. There's no confirmed threat, just chatter. Chatter put a bomb in my ER last week. Maren didn't respond. Lindquist pushed off the desk. Here's what's going to happen. You see something, you tell me. Immediately. You don't go rogue, you don't play hero, you follow protocol. Understood? Understood. Good. Now get back to work. She stood, walked to the door, stopped. For what it's worth, she said, not turning around, I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm just trying to make sure no one else dies. She left before he could respond. The rest of the shift passed without incident. Maren clocked out at 7, got in her car, and drove home. She didn't sleep, just sat on her bed with the DOD phone in her hand waiting for it to ring. It didn't. She went back that night. Same routine, same ER, same patients. But the tension was different, thicker. Like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Security was everywhere. Guards at every entrance, bag checks, ID scans. It felt less like a hospital and more like a checkpoint. Maren hated it, but she understood it. Around 10, a call came in. Multi-vehicle accident on the interstate. 6 patients incoming. Brenna started coordinating. Bays were cleared, trauma teams assembled. Maren grabbed a gown and gloves and positioned herself near the ambulance bay. The first rig pulled in. Paramedics jumped out, yanking the gurney. A woman in her 50s, headlock, possible spinal injury. Maren helped transfer her to a bed, stabilized her neck, and started an IV while a resident assessed her pupils. The second rig arrived, then the third. The ER flooded with blood and noise and movement. Maren worked fast, pressure on a femoral bleed, intubation set up for a guy with a crushed chest, fluids for a kid in shock. She didn't think, just moved. Lindquist was in the thick of it, directing traffic, making calls, keeping the chaos organized. He glanced at Maren once. She nodded. He nodded back. That was enough. By midnight, 5 of the 6 patients were stable. The 6th, a teenage girl with internal bleeding, was in surgery. The ER started to settle. Maren stripped off her gloves, tossed them in the bin, and headed for the break room. Tyler was there, sitting alone, eating a sandwich. Maren stopped in the doorway. You worked the trauma? He looked up. Yeah, first time. How'd it go? Fine, I guess. You were fast. You get used to it. Tyler nodded, took another bite. Maren studied him. His hands were steady, his demeanor calm. Nothing about him screamed threat. But something still felt off. She couldn't put her finger on it. Where'd you work before this? She asked. County General, North Side. Why'd you leave? Budget cuts. They let a bunch of us go. That sucks. Yeah. Maren grabbed a coffee, sat down across from him. You like it here so far? It's fine. Busy. It is. Tyler finished his sandwich, stood. I should get back. Yeah. He walked out. Maren sat there, sipping her coffee, replaying the conversation in her head. Nothing he'd said was suspicious. Nothing was wrong, but her gut was screaming. She pulled out the DOD phone, stared at the speed dial button, then put it away. Not yet. The next 2 nights were quiet, too quiet. No threats, no incidents, no suspicious activity. Maren started to wonder if Hale had been wrong, if the intelligence was bad, if the whole thing was a false alarm. Then on the 3rd night, everything fell apart. It started with a code blue. Bay 3. Cardiac arrest. Maren was the first to respond. She grabbed the crash cart, sprinted to the bay, and found a man in his 60s seizing on the bed. No pulse. No rhythm. She started compressions while a nurse bagged him. Get me EP, Maren said. The nurse grabbed it, pushed it. Maren kept compressing. 30 seconds. A minute. Nothing. She checked the monitor, flatline. Charged to 200. They shocked him. Nothing. Again. Shocked. Still nothing. Lindquist appeared. How long? 4 minutes. Keep going. They worked him for another 6 minutes. Maren's arms burned. Her shoulders ached, but she didn't stop. Not until Lindquist said, "Call it." She stepped back, stripped off her gloves. The man was gone. Time of death. 2:17. Maren walked out of the bay. Her hands were shaking, not from exertion, from something else. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard, trying to calm down. That's when she saw him. Tyler, standing at the end of the hallway, watching her. Their eyes met. He didn't look away, didn't smile, just stared. Then he turned and walked toward the supply room. Maren's pulse spiked. She followed. The supply room was in the back, narrow, shelves stocked with medical equipment. Tyler was inside, restocking IV kits. He didn't look up when she entered. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah. Why?" "You were watching me." "Was I?" "Yeah." Tyler set down the box he was holding, turned to face her. "You're paranoid." "Maybe. Or maybe you're just looking for problems that aren't there." Maren stepped closer. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been watching me since I started, like you think I'm going to do something." "Should I?" Tyler's expression didn't change. "I'm just here to do my job, same as you." "Good, then we won't have a problem." She turned to leave. Tyler's voice stopped her. "You know what I think?" She looked back. "I think you're scared," he said. "I think something happened to you, and now you see threats everywhere, even when they're not real." Maren's jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." She walked out, didn't look back. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were clenched. She went straight to Brenna. "I need Tyler's employment file." Brenna frowned. "Why?" "Just get it." "Maren." "Brenna, please." Brenna sighed, pulled up the file on her computer. Maren scanned it. Name, Tyler Kovac. Previous employer, County General. References checked. Background clear. Nothing stood out, but something was still wrong. She pulled out the DoD phone, Shoshum, hit the speed dial button. Hale answered on the second ring. "Talk to me." "There's a temp tech here, Tyler Kovac, started 3 days ago. Something's off about him." "What kind of off?" "I don't know, just a feeling." "And feelings aren't evidence, Cole." "I know, but I need you to run him. Deep. Everything." Hale paused. "Give me an hour." She hung up. Maren shoved the phone back in her pocket and returned to work, but her eyes kept tracking Tyler. He moved through the ER like he belonged, confident, efficient, unremarkable, exactly the way Driscoll had. 45 minutes later, the phone buzzed. Maren stepped into the hallway and answered. "He's clean," Hale said. "County General confirms employment. References check out. No criminal record, no red flags." "Are you sure?" "We ran everything, twice. He's not your guy." Maren exhaled. "Okay. Cole, listen to me. You're doing good work, but you can't let this consume you. You see a real threat, you call me, but you can't chase ghosts." "I'm not." "Yes, you are. And if you're not careful, you're going to miss the real thing when it shows up." Hale hung up. Maren stood there, phone in hand, staring at the wall. Maybe Hale was right. Maybe she was seeing ghosts. Maybe Tyler was exactly what he claimed to be. Or maybe the real threat was somewhere else. Someone else. She went back to the nurse's station. Kay was there, looking stressed. "You okay?" Maren asked. "No, we just got word there's a fire at Mercy West. They're evacuating patients. We're taking the overflow." "How many?" 12. "Maybe more." "When?" 20 minutes. Maren's stomach dropped. Mercy West was 10 miles away. A mid-sized hospital. If they were evacuating, it was serious. And if Ridgeway was taking overflow patients, that meant the ER was about to be swamped. Perfect conditions for an attack. She grabbed the DoD phone, called Hale. "Something's happening." "What?" "Fire at Mercy West. They're sending patients here. It could be a diversion." Hale was quiet for a moment. Then, We're on our way. Lock it down. No one in or out unless they're vetted. Understood? Understood. Maren hung up, ran to Lindquist's office. He was on the phone. She didn't wait for him to finish. We need to lock down the ER, now. He covered the receiver. What are you talking about? The fire at Mercy West. It could be a setup. We need to screen everyone coming in. You're serious? Yes. Lindquist's expression shifted. He spoke into the phone. I'll call you back. Hung up, stood. What do you need? Security at every entrance. No one gets in without ID verification, and we need to clear the waiting room. Anyone non-critical gets sent home. That's going to cause a riot. Better than a bombing. Lindquist stared at her. Then he nodded. Do it. Maren moved fast. She coordinated with security, set up checkpoints, started clearing the waiting room. People complained, shouted, demanded answers. She ignored them, just kept moving. The first ambulance from Mercy West arrived 15 minutes later. Paramedics unloaded an elderly man on a gurney. Smoke inhalation. Maren checked his belongings. Wallet, keys, inhaler. Nothing suspicious. The second ambulance arrived. A woman with burns. Maren checked her bag. Clean. Third ambulance. A kid with a broken arm. Clean. Fourth, fifth, sixth. All clean. Maren started to relax. Maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe it was just a fire. Maybe Hale was right and she was chasing. The seventh ambulance pulled up. Paramedics jumped out, pulled the gurney. A man in his 40s. Unconscious. Hooked up to a ventilator. The medic was young, nervous. What's his status? Maren asked. Unresponsive, possible head trauma. We intubated in the field. Where'd you pick him up? Outside Mercy West. He collapsed during the evacuation. Maren checked his pockets. Wallet, phone, and something else. A small metal cylinder. No label, no markings. Her blood ran cold. Stop, she said. The medic froze. What? Put the gurney down. Step back. What's going on? Maren grabbed the cylinder, held it up. What is this? The medic's face went pale. I don't know. It was in his jacket. I thought it was medicine. Maren's hands were shaking. She turned the cylinder, felt weight inside, heard liquid sloshing. Get security, now! The medic ran. Maren set the cylinder on the ground, stepped back. Her mind was racing. Liquid, metal casing, no markings. It could be anything. Medicine, saline, or something worse. She pulled out the DOD phone, called Hale. I've got something. What? Unknown substance. Metal cylinder. Came in with a patient from Mercy West. Don't touch it. We're 2 minutes out. Already here. Black SUVs screeched into the parking lot. Federal agents poured out. Hale was the first one through the door. She saw the cylinder, saw Maren. Her expression darkened. Everyone back, now. The ER evacuated. Again. Patients, nurses, doctors, everyone. Maren stood outside, watching the hazmat team move in. They scanned the cylinder, opened it carefully. 10 minutes later, Hale walked out. It's VX, she said. Maren's stomach dropped. VX. Nerve agent. One of the deadliest chemical weapons ever made. How much? Maren asked. Enough to kill everyone in this building. Maren felt the ground shift under her. The patient. Where is he? In custody. He's not unconscious. He was faking. And the medic? Not a medic. He's one of them. Maren's pulse hammered. How many more? We don't know. But Cole, this isn't random. They're targeting you. What? The fake medic. He asked for you by name, said he had a message. Hale handed her a folded piece of paper. Maren opened it. 4 words. You can't stop us. Her hands clenched. The paper crumpled. She looked at Hale. Where is he? Federal detention. You're not going anywhere near him. He came here for me. I need to know why. Because you stopped Driscoll. Because you're in their way. And because they want you to know they're coming. Maren's jaw tightened. Then let them come. Hale grabbed her arm. This isn't a war zone, Cole. You can't fight them alone. I'm not alone. She pulled free, walked back into the ER. Lindquist was standing in the lobby, pale, shaken. He saw her and exhaled. Is it over? No, Maren said. It's just starting. Lindquist stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Just starting? His voice cracked. We just evacuated the entire ER because someone smuggled a nerve agent into my hospital. That's not starting. That's a goddamn catastrophe. It's a message, Maren said. They wanted us to find it. Why the hell would they want that? To prove they can get to us whenever they want. Lindquist ran a hand through his hair. He looked 10 years older than he had an hour ago. This is insane. We can't operate like this. We can't treat patients if we're waiting for the next attack. Then we don't wait. We find them first. We? Lindquist laughed, sharp and bitter. You're a nurse, Cole. Not a federal agent, not a soldier. A nurse. Maren met his eyes. I was a soldier, and I'm still here because I know how these people think. Then enlighten me. What are they thinking? They're thinking we're soft, vulnerable, that we'll panic and shut down. That's what they want, fear, chaos. If we give them that, they win. Lindquist stared at her. Then he exhaled, long and slow. What do you need? Access to the fake medic, the one they arrested. Hale will never allow it. She doesn't have to know. Are you serious? Maren didn't answer. She just walked past him, out of the ER, into the parking lot where the federal vehicles were still clustered. Hale was standing near one of the SUVs, phone pressed to her ear, barking orders. Maren waited until she finished. I need to see him, Maren said. Hale didn't even look up. No. He asked for me by name. That means he knows something. Or it means he's trying to get in your head, which, by the way, seems to be working. I can handle it. That's not the point. Hale finally looked at her. You're not an interrogator. You're not trained for this. And I'm not putting a civilian in a room with a domestic terrorist just because he wrote you a creepy note. Then what's your plan? Wait for the next attack? My plan is to let professionals do their job. Your professionals didn't stop Driscoll. I did. Hale's jaw tightened. You got lucky. Luck doesn't look like this. Maren gestured at the ER, still evacuated, still swarming with hazmat teams. And you know it. For a long moment, Hale said nothing. Then she pulled out her phone, typed something, and shoved it back in her pocket. 1 hour, supervised. You ask questions, he answers or he doesn't, and then you leave. That's it. Where is he? Federal holding facility. 20 minutes from here. I'll have a car take you. I'll drive myself. No, you won't. 15 minutes later, Maren was in the back of a black SUV, wedged between two agents who didn't speak. The driver took side streets, avoiding the highway. The city rolled past. Empty warehouses, closed storefronts, chain-link fences. Colton looked different at 4 in the morning, quieter, deader. The holding facility was unmarked. Gray concrete building, no windows. Single entrance with armed guards. The SUV pulled into an underground garage. Maren was escorted through a series of hallways, bare walls, fluorescent lights, cameras everywhere, until they reached a small observation room. Hale was already there. He's in the next room, she said, nodding toward a one-way mirror. You've got 15 minutes. You said an hour. I changed my mind. Maren looked through the glass. The fake medic was sitting at a metal table, hands cuffed to a bolt in the center. He was younger than she'd thought, maybe 30, clean-shaven, calm. He wasn't fidgeting, wasn't looking around, just sitting there like he was waiting for a bus. What's his name? Maren asked. He's not talking, won't give us anything. Not his name, not who he works for, not how he got the VX. Then why let me in? Because he asked for you 3 times, and I want to know why. Maren nodded, took a breath, stepped toward the door. Cole, Hale said, don't do anything stupid. Maren didn't respond. She walked into the interrogation room. The man looked up, smiled. There she is. Maren sat down across from him. You know me? Everyone knows you, the nurse who stopped a bombing, the hero of Ridgeway Medical Center. I'm not a hero. No? The man tilted his head. Then what are you? Someone who's very tired of people like you. He laughed, soft, almost friendly. People like me. You mean patriots? I mean terrorists. That's a matter of perspective. Maren leaned forward. Why did you ask for me? Because you're important. To who? To the story. He leaned back, chains rattling. Do you know what happens when the system fails? When hospitals become weapons? When the people meant to save lives start taking them? I don't take lives. Don't you? His smile widened. How many people died because you made the wrong call? How many didn't make it off that table because you weren't fast enough? Maren's pulse spiked. You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you, Sergeant Cole. I know about Operation Black Ridge. I know about the 6 soldiers you saved and the 14 you couldn't. I know you've been running from that ever since. Her hands clenched under the table. Who told you that? Does it matter? Yes. He leaned forward, chains clinking. We've been watching you. Since the day you walked into Ridgeway. Since the day you thought you could hide, you can't. People like you never can. People like me? Killers. Maren stood, walked to the door, stopped. You wanted me here to get in my head, she said, not turning around. It's not going to work. It already has. She opened the door, walked out. Hale was waiting. Well? He's a fanatic. He's not going to talk. That's it? Maren didn't answer. She just kept walking. Down the hall, out of the building, into the parking lot. She stood there breathing hard, fists clenched, trying to keep it together. Hale followed her out. What did he say to you? Nothing that matters. Cole? He's trying to rattle me. That's all this is. Then why do you look like it worked? Maren turned. Because he knew things. Things that aren't in any file. Things that only people who were there would know. Hale's expression shifted. You think he was military? Or connected to someone who was? Then we need to dig deeper. Find out who he is, where he came from, who he's working with. You won't find it in a file, Maren said. These people don't leave trails. They don't make mistakes. They plan, they prepare, and they don't stop until they get what they want. Which is what? To prove the system's broken, that hospitals aren't safe, that people like me can't protect anyone. Hale studied her. You really believe that? I know that. Then prove them wrong. Maren looked at her. How? By stopping the next attack before it happens. They drove back to Ridgeway in silence. The sun was starting to rise. The city looked different in daylight. Less menacing, more ordinary. But Maren couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in. Something inevitable. The ER had reopened. Patients were trickling back in. Security was still tight. Guards at every entrance. Metal detectors. Bag searches. It felt more like an airport than a hospital. Lindquist found her the moment she walked in. We need to talk. About what? About the fact that the hospital board is considering shutting us down. Maren stopped. What? They're calling it a safety concern. 2 incidents in 2 weeks. A bomb, a nerve agent. They think we're a liability. That's insane. That's politics. Lindquist looked exhausted. They're meeting tomorrow morning. If they vote to close, we're done. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. What about the patients? They'll be transferred. Ridgeway becomes a footnote, and everyone who works here out of a job. Maren felt something cold settle in her chest. They can't do that. They can, and they will, unless we can prove this place is secure. How? By not having another incident. That's not a plan. It's all we've got. Maren walked away. She couldn't think, couldn't process. The ER was supposed to be a refuge, a place where she could disappear, do the work, keep her head down. But now it was a target, and if it closed, she'd have nowhere left to run. She went to the break room, sat down, stared at the wall. Kay found her there 10 minutes later. You okay? No. Kay sat down next to her. What happened? Everything. Want to talk about it? Not really. Kay nodded, didn't push, just sat there. After a while, she said, You know what I think? What? I think you're the strongest person I've ever met, and I think you're terrified people are going to figure that out. Maren looked at her. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't it? Kay stood. You stopped a bombing. You identified a nerve agent. You've saved more lives in 2 weeks than most nurses do in a year. But you walk around like you're waiting for someone to call you a fraud. I'm not a fraud. Then stop acting like one. Kay left. Maren sat there, alone, her words echoing in her head. The next 12 hours were a blur. Patients came in, patients left. Maren worked on autopilot, IV lines, wound care, medication administration. The routine kept her grounded, kept her moving, but her mind was somewhere else. She kept thinking about the fake medic, about what he'd said, about how he'd known things no one should know, and about the message. You can't stop us. Maybe he was right. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe all of this, Driscoll, the nerve agent, the threats, was just the beginning. And maybe the real attack was still coming. Around 8 that evening, her phone buzzed, the DOD phone. She stepped into the hallway and answered. Cole, it's Hale. We got a hit. On what? The fake medic. His fingerprints match a contractor who worked at a military installation 4 years ago. Guess which one? Maren's stomach dropped. Black Ridge. Bingo. His name's Aaron Decker. He was part of the support staff, logistics, supply chain. He would have had access to personnel files, mission briefs, everything. So he knew about me. He knew about everyone. And when the installation was decommissioned, he disappeared. No employment records, no tax filings, nothing, until now. Who was he working for? We're still piecing it together, but we think he's part of a larger network, ex-military, disillusioned, radicalized. They call themselves the Vanguard Collective. Maren's blood ran cold. Vanguard, the same name as her old unit. That's not a coincidence, she said. No, it's not. They're using the name to send a message to people like you, former operators, people who served. They want you to know they're targeting the very system you fought to protect. How many of them are there? We don't know, but Decker's not talking, and we haven't been able to crack their communication network. All we know is they're planning something big, and it's happening soon. How soon? Could be days, could be hours. Maren closed her eyes. What do you need from me? Stay alert. If you see anything at all, you call me. And Cole? Yeah? Watch your back. These people know who you are, and they're not going to stop until you're out of the picture. Hale hung up. Maren stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Then she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Tyler was standing there, watching her. You're working late, he said. So are you. Can't sleep. Yeah, me neither. He stepped closer. You've been tense, more than usual. It's been a rough week. Has it? Tyler tilted his head. Or is it something else? Maren's pulse kicked up. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the way you look at people, like you're waiting for them to attack, like you're always one step away from a fight. I'm just careful. No. Tyler's voice dropped. You're scared. Maren's hand moved to her pocket, to the DOD phone. I think you should go. Tyler didn't move. You know what I think? I think you've been running for a long time, and I think you're tired. Tyler, I think you're done pretending. He reached into his jacket. Maren's hand shot out, grabbed his wrist, twisted. Tyler grunted, tried to pull free. Maren slammed him against the wall, arm pinned behind his back. Don't move. Jesus, what the hell? She reached into his jacket, pulled out a phone. Just a phone. Nothing else. She let him go, stepped back. Tyler turned, rubbing his wrist, staring at her like she'd lost her mind. What is wrong with you? I thought... You thought what? That I was going to attack you? Maren didn't answer. Tyler shook his head. You need help, Cole. Seriously. He walked away. Maren stood there, shaking, her breath coming fast. She'd been wrong, again. Just like with the first instinct, just like Hale had warned her. She was seeing threats that weren't there. Or maybe she was looking in the wrong place. She pulled out the DOD phone, called Hale. I need you to check someone. Who? Victor Lindquist, the ER director at Ridgeway. Hale paused. Why? Because he's been acting strange, asking too many questions, and he's the only person with access to everything, staff files, schedules, security protocols. You think he's involved? I think someone on the inside is feeding them information, and he's the only one who fits. That's a serious accusation, Cole. I know, but I need you to check. Fine. Give me an hour. Maren hung up, walked back into the ER. Lindquist was in his office, door closed, blinds drawn. She watched him through the window. He was on the phone again, talking to someone. His expression was hard, focused. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but she didn't need to. An hour later, Hale called back. You were right. Maren's chest tightened. About what? Lindquist. He's been in contact with someone flagged in our investigation. A lawyer named Marcus Trent. Trent represents several members of the Vanguard Collective. Why would Lindquist be talking to him? We don't know yet, but we're bringing him in for questioning. When? Now. Maren looked toward Lindquist's office. The light was still on. He was still there. Don't, she said. Not yet. Why not? Because if you arrest him now, we lose any chance of finding out what he knows. Let me talk to him first. Absolutely not. Hale! This isn't a negotiation, Cole. If Lindquist is involved, he's a threat, and I'm not letting you walk into his office alone. Then send backup. But give me 5 minutes, please. Hale was quiet. Then, 5 minutes. After that, we're coming in. Maren hung up, walked to Lindquist's office, knocked. Come in. She opened the door. Lindquist was sitting at his desk, paper spread in front of him. He looked up. Cole, what do you need? She stepped inside, closed the door behind her. I need the truth. Lindquist frowned. About what? About Marcus Trent. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You've been in contact with him multiple times, and he's connected to the people trying to attack this hospital. Lindquist stood. You need to leave. Not until you tell me why. I said leave. No. Lindquist's face hardened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then he exhaled, sat back down. Trent represents my son. Maren blinked. What? My son. Daniel. He was arrested 6 months ago. Conspiracy charges. They said he was involved with an extremist group. I hired Trent to defend him. Is he guilty? Lindquist's jaw tightened. He made mistakes, got in with the wrong people, but he's not a terrorist. Are you sure? He's my son. That's not an answer. Lindquist looked at her. Yes, I'm sure. Maren studied him, his eyes, his posture, looking for the lie, but she didn't see one. Does Trent know about the attacks? She asked. I don't know, maybe, but I didn't tell him anything, I swear. Then how did they know about me? About Black Ridge? I don't know. Maren's phone buzzed. Hale. Time was up. She looked at Lindquist. Federal agents are outside. They're going to bring you in for questioning. If you're telling the truth, you'll be fine. If you're not, I'm telling the truth. Then cooperate. Tell them everything. Lindquist nodded. I will. Maren opened the door. Hale was standing in the hallway, 2 agents behind her. He's ready to talk, Maren said. Hale walked past her into the office. Maren stepped back, watched them take Lindquist out. He didn't resist, didn't argue, just went. And as he passed her, he said, Thank you. She didn't respond, because she didn't know if she'd just saved him or condemned him. The ER felt different after that. Quieter, emptier, like something vital had been ripped out. Brenna took over as acting director. The staff whispered, speculated, but nobody knew the full story. Maren went back to work, tried to focus, but her mind kept circling back to one thing. If Lindquist wasn't the insider, then who was? 2 days later, she got her answer. It was Kay. Maren stared at the screen in Hale's mobile command center, parked 2 blocks from Ridgeway. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Kay, standing in the hospital parking lot at 2 a.m. 3 days ago, talking to someone in a dark sedan. The angle didn't catch the driver's face, but it caught Kay handing over something small, an envelope, then walking back inside like nothing had happened. How long? Maren's voice came out flat. We don't know yet, Hale said, but we pulled her phone records. She's been in contact with a burner number for 6 weeks, right around the time you started at Ridgeway. Maren's hands clenched. She was watching me. Looks that way. Why? Because whoever's running this operation knew you'd spot something eventually, so they put someone close, someone you'd trust. Maren felt sick. Kay had been the first person to talk to her, the first person to act like she wasn't invisible, the one who'd pulled her aside after codes, after rough shifts, after Lindquist tore into her, the one who'd said, "You're a badass," like it was a compliment instead of a threat. "Where is she now?" Maren asked. "Still at the hospital, working her shift. We've got eyes on her, but we haven't moved yet." "Why not?" "Because we want to see who she contacts next. If we grab her now, the rest of the network goes dark. We need her to lead us to them." Maren stood. "I'm going back." "No, you're not." "She doesn't know we're on to her. I can get her to talk. Or she can put a bullet in you the second she realizes you know." "She won't." "You don't know that." Maren turned. "Yes, I do, because she had a dozen chances to kill me already and didn't. She's not the shooter. She's the inside contact. And if I can get her to flip, we end this." Hale stared at her. Then she pulled out her phone, made a call, spoke quietly, hung up. "You've got one shot. You wear a wire. You get her to incriminate herself. And the second it goes sideways, we move in. Understood?" "Understood." 20 minutes later, Maren walked back into Ridgeway with a transmitter taped under her scrubs. The ER was steady. Not busy, but not dead. Kay was at the nurse's station, updating charts. She looked up when Maren approached. "Hey, thought you were off tonight." "Couldn't sleep," Maren said. "Figured I'd come in." "Yeah, I get that." Kay set down her pen. "You doing okay? You've been weird lately." "Weird how?" "I don't know. Jumpy, like you're waiting for something bad to happen." Maren forced a small smile. "It's been a rough couple weeks." "That's an understatement." Kay stood, stretched. "I'm grabbing coffee. Want some?" "Sure." They walked to the break room, empty. Kay poured 2 cups, handed one to Maren. They sat at the small table. For a moment, neither spoke. Just 2 nurses on a slow night drinking bad coffee, like they'd done 100 times before. "Can I ask you something?" Maren said. "Yeah." "Why'd you become a nurse?" Kay blinked. "That's random." "I'm just curious." "Well," Kay shrugged. "I wanted to help people. Sounds cheesy, but it's true. My mom got sick when I was a kid. Cancer. The nurses at her hospital were the only ones who treated her like a person instead of a diagnosis. I wanted to be like them." "Did she make it?" "No, but they made her last months bearable. That mattered." Maren nodded. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." Kay sipped her coffee. "What about you? Why'd you become a nurse?" "I needed a job." Kay laughed. "That's the most honest answer I've ever heard." "It's true. I didn't have a lot of options." "Because of the military thing?" Maren's pulse kicked up. "What military thing?" "Come on. Everyone knows you were a soldier. The way you move, the way you handle trauma, it's obvious." "I don't talk about it." "I know, and that's fine. But Maren, you don't have to pretend with me. I get it. You did things you're not proud of. You saw things you can't forget. And now you're trying to make up for it by saving lives instead of taking them." Maren set down her cup. "Is that what you think?" "It's what I know." Kay leaned forward. "And it's okay. We all have our reasons for being here. Mine's guilt. Yours is probably the same. What do you have to feel guilty about?" Kay's expression shifted, just for a second. Then she smiled. "Nothing. Forget I said anything." "Kay, I should get back." Kay stood. "We've got a patient in Bay 4 who needs vitals." "Wait." Kay stopped. "I need to ask you something else," Maren said, "and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "Are you in trouble?" Kay frowned. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind where you're doing something you don't want to do because someone's making you." Kay's face went carefully blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Maren stood. "I know about the parking lot. I know about the burner phone. I know you've been feeding information to someone." Kay took a step back. "You're crazy." "I'm not. And you know I'm not." "Maren, who are you working for?" Kay's hands were shaking. "You need to stop." "I can't. Not until you tell me the truth." The truth? Kay's voice cracked. You want the truth? Fine, I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. No, there isn't. Kay's eyes filled with tears. They have my sister. They took her 6 weeks ago, said if I didn't help them, they'd kill her. Maren felt the air leave her lungs. Where is she? I don't know. They won't tell me. They just send me photos every few days to prove she's alive. What did they make you do? Watch you, report on your schedule, tell them when you were working, when you weren't. Kay's voice broke. I didn't know what they were planning. I swear. I thought they just wanted information. And when Driscoll walked in with a bomb, you didn't think to say something? I didn't know he was coming. They didn't tell me. But you suspected. Kay didn't answer. Maren stepped closer. Kay, if you help us now, we can find your sister. But you have to tell me everything. Who contacted you? How do you communicate? Where are they? I don't know where they are. They call me. I never see them. What about the guy in the parking lot? I don't know who he is. He just picks up the envelopes. What's in the envelopes? Schedules, staff rosters, security protocols, whatever they ask for. Maren pulled out the DOD phone, called Hale. She's talking. We need a trace on the burner number, and we need to find her sister. Already working on it, Hale said. Keep her calm. We're moving in. Maren hung up, looked at Kay. They're going to help you, but you need to cooperate. Tell them everything. Kay nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. The door opened. Federal agents poured in. Kay didn't resist. She just stood there, shaking as they led her out. Maren watched her go, felt the weight of it settle in her chest. Kay wasn't a terrorist. She was a victim. Someone who'd been backed into a corner and made the only choice she thought she had. But that didn't change what she'd done. Hale appeared in the doorway. Good work. Don't. Don't what? Don't congratulate me. She's not the enemy. She's collateral damage. She's a co-conspirator, and she gave them everything they needed to plan an attack. Because they threatened her sister. That doesn't make her innocent. Maren turned. No, but it makes her human. She walked out of the break room. The ER felt different now, colder, emptier, like the last piece of something good had been ripped away. She stood at the nurse's station, staring at the schedule board, trying to process everything. Brenna approached. What's going on? Why did they take Kay? I can't talk about it. Maren, not now. Brenna didn't push. She just walked away. And Maren stood there alone, wondering how much more she could take before she broke. The answer came 2 hours later. Hale called. We found her. Kay's sister? Yeah, she's alive, locked in a storage unit on the south side. We're bringing her in now. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Mentally, it's going to take time. But she's safe. Maren exhaled. What about the network? We traced the burner number. It's registered to a shell company linked to the Vanguard Collective. We've got warrants going out now. Expect arrests within the next 12 hours. That's it? Not quite. Hale paused. We found something else. Communications between the collective and a retired military officer, someone who had access to classified files, including yours. Maren's stomach dropped. Who? Colonel Raymond Voss. He was your commanding officer at Black Ridge. The world tilted. Maren grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. That's not possible. It is. And it gets worse. Voss was the one who ordered the retreat at Black Ridge, the one who left your unit behind. And when you made the call to stay and extract the survivors, he blamed you for the casualties. He destroyed my career. And now he's using your name to recruit, telling people you're a symbol of everything wrong with the system. A soldier who disobeyed orders and got people killed. He's been feeding the collective intel, locations, targets, all to prove his point. Maren felt rage boil up inside her. Where is he? We don't know yet, but we will. And when we find him, he's going down for treason. I want to be there when you arrest him. Cole, I want to be there. Hale sighed. I'll see what I can do. She hung up. Maren stood there, shaking, trying to breathe. Voss, the man who'd abandoned her unit, the man who'd blamed her for his failure, the man who'd spent 4 years turning her into a villain while he played the hero. He was the one behind all of this, and she was going to make sure he paid for it. The next 18 hours were a blur. Arrests, raids, interrogations. The Vanguard Collective started to unravel. Members were picked up across 3 states. Safe houses were cleared. Weapons caches seized. And in the middle of it all, Kay's sister was reunited with her family. Maren watched the footage from Hale's command center. The moment the 2 sisters saw each other, the way they collapsed into each other's arms, the way Kay sobbed like something inside her had finally broken free. "She's going to do time," Hale said, standing next to Maren, "but the prosecutor's considering a plea deal, reduced sentence in exchange for testimony." "Good. You don't sound happy about it." "I'm not happy about any of this." Hale didn't respond. 2 days later, they found Voss. He was holed up in a cabin in the mountains, 200 miles from Colton. Federal agents surrounded the property. Hale let Maren ride along. She sat in the back of an SUV, watching through binoculars as the tactical team moved in. Voss didn't resist. He walked out with his hands up, calm, controlled, like he'd been expecting this. They cuffed him, read him his rights, loaded him into a transport vehicle. And as they drove him past Maren's SUV, he looked right at her, smiled. Maren felt her fists clench. Hale put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't." "He's smiling." "Because he thinks he won." "Did he?" "No. He's going to spend the rest of his life in a federal prison. That's not winning." Maren watched the transport drive away. "He wanted me to see him, to know he did this." "And you did. Now let it go." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Because you're better than him, and you proved it." Maren didn't respond. She just stared at the road, watching the dust settle. The transport hadn't gone a mile when Hale's phone rang. She answered, listened, her face going hard. She hung up and looked at Maren. "There's been a development." "What kind?" "Voss had a dead man's switch, a final message sent to the collective if he was ever arrested. We just intercepted it." "What does it say?" "It's an address, here in Colton, and it's the location of one more device, VX, bigger yield than the one Decker brought in, set to detonate in 4 hours. Maren's blood ran cold. "Where?" "Ridgeway Medical Center." Maren was out of the SUV before Hale could stop her. She grabbed a radio from one of the agents, barked orders for evacuation protocols, and called Brenna directly. "Get everyone out. Patients, staff, visitors, everyone. You have 10 minutes. "Maren, what?" "Do it now. I'll explain later." She hung up. Climbed into the driver's seat of the SUV. Hale got in beside her. "You're not going back there." "Yes, I am." "The bomb squad." "Won't get there in time. You know it. I know it." Hale's jaw tightened. "If you go in there and that thing detonates, then I die doing what I'm good at. That's not heroic. That's stupid." "Maybe, but it's my call." Maren floored it. The SUV tore down the mountain road, tires screaming on the curves. Hale radioed ahead. Bomb squad was 25 minutes out. Maren would be there in 12. She made it in 10. The ER was chaos. Patients being wheeled out. Nurses running, security trying to maintain order. Maren parked, sprinted inside. Found Brenna coordinating near the ambulance bay. "Where is everyone?" "Almost clear. We've got 3 patients left. ICU transfers. They're too critical to move fast." "How long?" 5 minutes. "Make it 3. Maren ran into the ER. The place was nearly empty. Gurneys abandoned, equipment scattered. She moved through the bays, checking each one. Empty, empty, empty. Then she reached Bay 11. The device was there, sitting on a supply shelf, black metal cylinder, larger than the one Decker had carried. Digital timer on the front. 2 hours, 14 minutes. Maren's hands didn't shake. She pulled out her phone, called Hale. "I found it. Don't touch it. Bomb squad's 15 minutes out. The timer says 2 hours, but if Voss set this up, he knew we'd find it, which means..." The timer jumped. 2 hours became 10 minutes. "It's rigged," Maren said. "Tampering activated the real countdown. Get out of there, now." "Not yet." Maren set the phone down, studied the device. VX dispersal, probably pressure triggered. If she moved it, it could detonate early. If she left it, everyone within a quarter mile would die. She'd seen devices like this before. In the field, improvised, deadly, but defeatable. If you knew what you were doing, and if you didn't care about the risk. She knelt beside it, examined the casing, found the access panel, pulled a multi-tool from her pocket. something she'd carried since her military days, and started working. 9 minutes. The panel came off. Inside was a nest of wires, red, blue, yellow, green, standard color coding. But Voss would have known that, would have anticipated it, which meant the standard approach would kill her. 8 minutes. She traced each wire, followed the connections, found the pressure sensor, found the timer relay, found the failsafe. There, a secondary trigger, hidden behind the main circuit. If she cut the wrong wire, it would blow immediately. 7 minutes. Her hands were steady, her breathing even. This was what she'd been trained for, not nursing, not saving lives in an ER. She chose a wire, yellow, bypassed the main circuit, rerouted the current through the secondary trigger. 6 minutes. The timer flickered, held. She cut the red wire. The timer stopped. 5 minutes, 43 seconds. Frozen. Maren stood, stepped back, let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Hale's voice crackled through the phone. "Cole, what's your status?" "Disarmed." "Say that again." "The device is disarmed. Send in the bomb squad to secure it." Silence. Then, "How the hell did you—" "Later." Maren walked out of Bay 11, out of the ER, into the parking lot where Brenna and the staff were waiting. They stared at her. She nodded. "It's safe. You can go back in." Brenna's eyes were wide. "You disarmed a bomb." I disarmed a dispersal device." "That's the same thing." "Not really." Brenna laughed, loud, almost hysterical. Then she grabbed Maren and pulled her into a hug. "You're insane." "Probably." The bomb squad arrived, secured the device, cleared the building. By the time they finished, the sun was setting. Maren sat on the curb outside the ER, exhausted, running on nothing but adrenaline and coffee. Hale sat down beside her. "You should be dead." "I'm not." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" "The point is you keep putting yourself in situations where you could die, and one of these days, you're not going to make it out." Maren looked at her. "Would that be so bad?" "Yes, because the world needs people like you. People like me get other people killed. People like you save lives. You've saved more people in the last month than most do in a lifetime. And you did it without a uniform, without orders, without anyone telling you it was your job." Maren didn't respond. "Voss was wrong about you," Hale said. "You didn't disobey orders at Black Ridge because you were reckless. You did it because you knew it was the right call, and you've been proving that ever since." "I don't feel like a hero." "Good. Heroes are idiots. You're a professional." Maren almost smiled. Hale stood. "We're holding a press conference tomorrow. The arrests, the disrupted plot, the disarmed device. The public needs to know what happened, and they need to know who stopped it. I don't want my name out there." "Too late. It already is." "Hale, this isn't optional, Cole. You're going to stand up there. You're going to tell your story, and you're going to show people that the system works when the right people are in it. And if I refuse, then I'll tell the story without you. But it'll be better if you're there." Hale walked away. Maren sat on the curb, staring at the hospital, the place that had been a refuge, a hiding spot, a way to disappear. It wasn't that anymore. A week later, Ridgeway Medical Center reopened fully. The board voted to keep it running. Security protocols were updated, new staff were hired, and the ER returned to what it did best, saving lives. Maren walked in on her first shift back and found the place transformed. New equipment, fresh paint. A plaque in the lobby honoring the staff who'd responded during the crisis. Her name was on it. Right at the top. She stared at it for a long moment, then kept walking. Brenna found her at the nurse's station. "Welcome back." "Thanks." "You doing okay?" "Getting there." "Good." Brenna handed her a tablet. "We've got a full board tonight. Ready?" Maren took the tablet, scanned the list, 30 patients, chest pain, broken bones, overdoses, the usual chaos. "Yeah," she said. "I'm ready." The shift started. Maren moved through the ER like she always had. Fast, efficient, focused. But something was different. People looked at her differently now. With respect, with recognition. Like she wasn't just another nurse anymore. She hated it and loved it at the same time. Around midnight, a man came in. mid-50s, gunshot wound to the shoulder, police escort. Maren took the case, stabilized him, got him to surgery. The cops thanked her. She nodded, moved on. In the break room later, she sat alone with a cup of coffee, stared at the wall, thought about everything that had happened. Driscoll, Decker, Kay, Voss, all the lives saved, all the lives lost, all the choices she'd made. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to a number she hadn't called in years, hesitated, then dialed. It rang 3 times. Then a voice answered. Rough, tired, familiar. Who is this? It's Maren. Silence. Then, Cole? Yeah. I heard what happened, saw it on the news. It's over now. Is it? Maren paused. I don't know, but I'm still here. Good. That means you're tougher than the rest of us. I'm not tough. I'm just stubborn. The voice on the other end laughed, soft, almost sad. Same thing, kid. Same thing. They talked for another 10 minutes. Not about Black Ridge, not about Voss. Just about life, about moving forward, about finding something worth fighting for when everything else felt broken. When she hung up, Maren felt lighter. Not fixed, not whole, but closer. A month later, Hale called. I've got an offer for you. I'm not interested. Hear me out. We're building a new program. Specialized response teams embedded in hospitals, people who can identify threats, act fast, save lives. We need someone to train them. You want me to teach? I want you to lead. Maren was quiet for a long moment. I'm not a soldier anymore. No, you're something better. You're someone who understands both sides, combat and care, and that's exactly what we need. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. We start in 3 months. Hale hung up. Maren sat in her apartment staring at the phone. A week ago, she would have said no immediately, but now she wasn't sure. Because maybe there was something worth doing, something bigger than just surviving. She thought about Kay, about her letter, about the second chance she was getting. She thought about Lindquist, cleared of suspicion, back at Ridgeway, running the ER with new respect for the people who worked under him. She thought about Voss, sitting in a cell, his legacy destroyed, his name synonymous with betrayal. And she thought about the 14 soldiers who hadn't made it out of Black Ridge, the ones she couldn't save, the ones whose names she still carried. She picked up the phone, called Hale back. I'm in. Good. I'll send you the details. One condition. What? When Kay gets out, I want her in the program, if she's willing. Hale paused. You sure about that? Yeah, she made a mistake, but she's not a lost cause, and she deserves a chance to prove it. All right, I'll make it happen. Thanks. 2 months later, Maren stood in front of a room full of recruits, ex-military, former first responders, people who'd seen the worst and wanted to make sure it didn't happen again. My name is Maren Cole, she said, and I'm going to teach you how to save lives when everything's falling apart. The room was silent, listening. You're going to see things that scare you, things that make you want to quit, things that make you question why you're here. But if you can push through that, if you can stay focused when everyone else is panicking, you'll save people who would have died otherwise. She paused, met their eyes, one by one. I'm not going to lie to you. This job will break you if you let it, but it will also show you what you're capable of, and that's worth everything. The recruits nodded. Maren turned to the board behind her, wrote 2 words, assess, act. That's it. That's the job. You assess the situation. You act. You don't overthink. You don't hesitate. You trust your training and you move. She stepped back. Let's get to work. And for the first time in 4 years, Maren Cole felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not running, not hiding, not pretending, just doing the work. The truth was, she'd never stopped being a soldier. She'd just found a new way to fight. And this time, she wasn't fighting alone. 3 months into the program, she got a letter. From Kay. Maren, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did put people in danger, but I wanted you to know that because of you, my sister is safe. Because of you, I had the courage to tell the truth. And because of you, I'm getting a second chance. I'm going to spend the next few years in a minimum security facility. And when I get out, I'm going to do better. Be better. I don't know if I'll ever be a nurse again, but I know I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when you should have. K. Maren folded the letter, set it on her desk, stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up a pen and wrote back. K. Everyone deserves a second chance, even people who make mistakes, especially people who make mistakes. You did what you had to do to protect your sister. I understand that, and I don't blame you. When you get out, look me up. I might have a job for you. Maren. She sealed the envelope, sent it off, and got back to work. Because the world was still broken, people were still suffering, and there was still so much to do. But for the first time in a long time, Maren Cole wasn't running from her past. She was building a future, one life at a time. 6 months later, Ridgeway Medical Center held a ceremony. The hospital had been fully renovated. New trauma wing, expanded ER, state-of-the-art equipment, and at the center of it all, a memorial wall honoring those who'd served during the crisis. Maren stood in front of it, staring at the names, staff members who'd stayed when they could have run, patients who'd survived when they shouldn't have. And at the bottom, a quote, "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important." No attribution, no name, just the words. Lindquist appeared beside her. He'd been reinstated fully. The investigation had cleared him. His son's case had been resolved. A plea deal, probation, a second chance. He looked older now, weathered, but stronger somehow. "You wrote that, didn't you?" he said, nodding at the quote. "No." "Then who?" "Someone who taught me what it means." Lindquist nodded. They stood there in silence for a moment. "I never thanked you," he said finally. "For what?" "For trusting me when you had every reason not to." "You earned it." "Maybe, but not everyone would have given me the chance." Maren looked at him. "People make mistakes. Doesn't mean they can't be better." "Is that what you tell your recruits?" "It's what I tell myself." Lindquist smiled, small, genuine. "You're doing good work, Cole. The kind that matters. So are you." He walked away. Maren stayed a moment longer. Then she turned and left the memorial. Outside, the sun was setting over Colton. The city looked different now. Not because it had changed, but because she saw it differently. This place had been her refuge, her prison, her battleground. Now it was something else. Home. She got in her car, drove to the training facility where her recruits were waiting, walked into the classroom. 20 faces looked up at her, some nervous, some determined, all of them ready. "All right," she said, setting down her bag. "Let's talk about pressure. Real pressure. The kind where one wrong move costs lives." She pulled up a case study on the screen. A mass casualty event. Limited resources. Impossible choices. You've got 5 critical patients and 2 ventilators. Who gets them? The room erupted. Debate, argument, moral calculus. Maren listened. Let them work through it. Let them struggle. Because that's where growth happened. In the struggle. After 20 minutes, she held up a hand. Silence fell. "There's no right answer," she said. "There's only the answer you can live with. And whatever you choose, someone's going to second guess it. Someone's going to say you were wrong. But here's the truth. The only wrong choice is not making one." She looked at each of them. You're going to face moments where everything inside you screams to run, to give up, to let someone else decide. Don't. Because in those moments, you're the only thing standing between chaos and survival. And that matters. A hand went up. Young woman, mid-20s, former paramedic. "What if you make the wrong call?" "You will," Maren said. "Everyone does. And when it happens, you own it. You learn from it. And you make damn sure it doesn't happen again." "How do you live with it?" Maren paused, thought about Black Ridge, about the faces she still saw in her sleep, about the weight she carried every single day. "You don't," she said quietly. "You just keep moving. Because the people who need you don't care about your guilt. They care about whether you show up." The room was silent. "Class dismissed," Maren said. "See you tomorrow." They filed out. Maren stayed behind, erased the board, packed up her materials, stood in the empty classroom, breathing in the quiet. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hale. New facility opens next month, Seattle. You interested in heading it up? Maren stared at the message. A year ago, she would have said no, would have stayed small, stayed hidden. But that version of her was gone. She typed back, "Send me the details." Hale's response came immediately. "Already in your email." "And Cole? I'm proud of you." Maren pocketed the phone, grabbed her bag, walked out into the night. The air was cool. The stars were out. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Someone needed help. Someone was in danger. And people like her would be there. Not because they were heroes, but because they'd made a choice to show up, to do the work, to stand between fear and hope and say, "Not today." Maren Cole had spent 4 years running from who she was. Now she was running toward it. And for the first time since Black Ridge, she wasn't afraid. Because the nurse they'd underestimated had become the leader they needed. And the soldier who'd been blamed for failure had become the teacher who showed others how to succeed. The truth had set her free. And the work, the endless, relentless, beautiful work, was just beginning.